Audio Jungle.
And welcome to How to Start a Laundromat, brought to you by CLA. As the host today, should start with telling a little bit about what the organization is all about. CLA is the National Trade Association nonprofit in service to the laundromat industry. We're a vertical trade association made up of everyone from those of you that are here as prospects thinking about getting into the industry. Of course, thousands of stores represented as members, but we also include the commercial laundry equipment distributors, as well as the manufacturers and service providers that serve this industry. So we're all sort of together in one organization that we pull together to share best practices, to share resources, to create networking and events. We do a lot of advocacy and government affairs work on behalf of the industry, and we also have a number of business solutions that we make available to the industry through our strength in numbers and our expertise in the business. So, as an organization, we've been doing this for more than 65 years now, so dating back almost to the very beginning of the industry. We know that the industry has become very much in vogue lately and a lot of conversation about it, but just know that the business and the association have a long history before now, and we'll touch on that a bit more as we go along. Next up, I will introduce ourselves, starting with myself. My name is Brian Wallace. I serve as president and CEO here at CLA, the Laundry Association. My history dates back almost 34 years now, and I've spent my career in service here at CLA, working with many thousands and thousands of you that have considered getting into the industry, and I really enjoy providing some coaching and some consulting through our association membership, and spent a lot of time on the road learning more about the business over these many decades. And that's really my main passport to you, is just spending a lot of time with your peers out there in the field, actually heading down to Little Rock, Arkansas. So any of you in that area, I'll be doing an event in downtown at the Marriott tomorrow. More importantly, we've got a very special guest with us, Paul Hansen. Paul Hansen is a third generation operator, and his son just recently got started in the business himself. So, an incredible four-generation family with the Hansens. Paul has everything from a master in accounting to spending a lifetime as a multi-store operator and now consultant in the industry. Good morning, Paul. Great to have you with us.
Good morning, Brian. Good morning, everyone. Glad you guys can all join us.
Yeah, and Paul, among other things, I can keep going, is just been an ace volunteer both at the local level here in Chicago, recently retired from the National Board of Directors, and is extremely active as a board member with our Laundry Cares Foundation, which you can see the logo in Paul's background there. That's our charitable network, our C3 foundation, where we are giving back to the communities where we do business, primarily through literacy and early education support, and through events called Free Literacy and Laundry Days. And so maybe you all have some questions about that we can answer along the way, but it's a good way to tee up the fact that if you do consider jumping into the laundromat business, there is a ready-made community give back opportunity that has been very meaningful for our organization and for the neighborhoods that we serve. And so, like I said, Paul's been heavily involved in that outreach. So before I get into the top of the content, I just want to reiterate two things. One, appreciate you all saying hi in the chat. Yes, Nehemiah, we are recording. That's the other reminder I was going to share. We are recording, and we'll share with everyone. If you take a moment to find the Q&A box in the Zoom toolbar, that'll be your best way to answer questions to me and Paul. So the plan is that we've got a bunch of prepared content that we're going to share. I'm going to sort of lead that, ask some questions of Paul myself as we go along, but then we'll be keeping an eye for your questions in the box here and pausing throughout the way to make sure that we're tackling those questions for you. And as we get to the end of our 90 minutes, our goal is to put you in a position where you've got a little better idea about what this industry is all about and whether or not this is something that you'd like to pursue. So, good time to talk about the mission today. We do not sell equipment. We do not sell franchises. We do not sell anything other than a nonprofit membership with an educational focus. So, we're here to educate today, not to recruit. There's so much information out there now about the industry. It's sometimes difficult to sort of separate what's authoritative and what needs a little bit further vetting. But like I said, we've been doing this for a long time and feel pretty good about where we are in terms of the quality of the information. And really, we like to, be in a position to tell it like it is. We don't have, like I said, any other financial motivation to do anything other than that. And in light of the flood of social media content on all of this, I just feel it's important to tell you what we're not here to do. We're not here to find you a laundromat in 30 days or 15 days or get you a free laundromat. Nor are we going to make you a millionaire or find you a passive investment. We're not going to find you seller financing. And that's all well and good. Like I said, there's a lot of great information out there, but you'll see us as a resource for kind of playing it down the middle and being as informative as possible. And we feel that if you learn more about the business today and decide it's not for you, great. We wish you the best in your next entrepreneurial endeavor. If this further whets your appetite and gives you some more questions to get answered, we want to be part of that journey too. I think we can help you as we do every week to do that. So the question came up about the Q&A toolbox. If you just go to that toolbox, there's a little three-dot circle that says more. If you click down on that, there'll be a Q&A option, and that'll call up that box for you, so for those of you that may have been looking for that. So if we're all on the same page, then we can get going with the content. And we're going to start with just some basic tail of the tape. Who are we? What are we doing? What is this industry all about? So at the very top, I just want to kind of say, for definitional purposes, you hear a lot of terms out there. Laundromat, laundromat, you hear coin laundry, coin-op laundry, launderette, self-service laundry, vended laundry. These are all sort of the same thing that we're talking about. And the one distinction that we'll make is that we're not talking about the self-service or vended equipment that you would find in the apartment building or dormitory or some kind of multi-housing setting. That's actually a separate sort of segment of the industry. And they have their own organization. As a matter of fact, they're MLA, whereas we're CLA. So we're talking about that corner laundromat, that we'll call it a retail or service space that's being made available to the public to come in and do their laundry. And in a lot of cases, offering additional services like wash, dry, fold, and delivery. I'll just give you something to keep in the back of your mind. Paul created and launched a very successful laundry delivery service out of his laundromats. And so he would be a great resource for answering those types of questions as we go along, if that's one of the things that you've been considering. In terms of the industry itself, about 29,000-ish locations. It's a rough estimate. These are primarily independent businesses. It's very difficult to get your arms around exactly how many are out there. Industry class codes sort of overlap. If you look at Google, you'll see dry cleaners and laundries. So it's just a rough estimate, and with that, kind of a rough estimate of the total sales volume in somewhere in the $7 to $9 billion range. That's a number we've recently adjusted upward based on our benchmarking survey, the revenue per store, and some of the other work that we've been doing. So yeah, maybe a little bit larger industry than you may have guessed at the outset. In terms of the spaces themselves, we have a statistical mean or average of 2,910 square feet. So we do this benchmarking survey every year. It's available free to members. I'll be referencing a lot of data from it over the course of the conversation. So call it 3,000 square feet as the average store size today. But of course, you have small stores that can be very successful in smaller areas with less population density. And certainly we have stores at 12,000. Paul, I think one of the attendees at our conference last week had a 17,000 square foot store underway. So, maybe give the folks a little flavor of the size of locations that you ran here in Chicago, and maybe talk a little bit of how that population density and store size kind of fit together.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, I mean, many years ago, 30, 40 years ago, the average store size was much smaller. They were much more unsophisticated. Currently in big metro markets, I mean, you're seeing 5,000 square feet at a minimum. You need that because you have the population densities. Obviously, in smaller rural markets or areas, like New York, where properties at a premium, you might see some smaller locations, but definitely seen them grown into more full service centers, not just self-service, the old dingy, dirty walk in and feel unsafe. Now they're very modern for the most part, TVs, drop-off service, all kinds of amenities and turning, and of course, as you see here in my picture here, this replay learn centers, you're seeing a lot of that being put in, actually making laundries really becoming part of the community. More than just another business out there, but actually someplace people can go and feel safe and spend a few hours and get their job done and feel comfortable at it.
Yeah, Paul, it's definitely trending larger. And I think another kind of practical factor that comes up a lot in store size is two things. One, budget. Obviously, the bigger the store, the more um, revenue, the more revenue opportunity and the more cost that there is based on the size of store. And the other thing is just the practical matter of what's available, right? So maybe you're targeting 3,000, but here's a space that comes available that's 2,800 or one that's 3,300. You're probably not going to be so tied to a specific number. It's going to be some combination of considering, sort of all those factors together. So, that's a good consideration there. And most of our members are leasing their spaces. In other words, they're operating under a lease that they've negotiated with a local commercial space landlord, and they're paying out on a rent basis. And we're going to talk a lot about leases over the course of the conversation because it's something that, frankly, doesn't get talked about enough in some of the content around getting started in the business. Of course, we have our members that own their locations, and I think most would love to own their building, but it's also a factor of budget. But more than that, even is availability, right? Not in all, if you're in Southern California or New York City or even a good chunk of Chicago, you're probably not going to own your space, own your building. Um, and of course, a lot of these stores are built into small little shopping malls, shopping centers, strip centers. So our members are often not in a position either to have the opportunity or the bandwidth to purchase the whole center in terms of controlling their real estate. But those that are in the suburban settings or rural settings certainly love to own the real estate if they can. There's a lot of advantages to that we can discuss as we go along. And the last thing on this tail of the tape overview is just talking a little bit about our target customer. The beauty is that everybody has dirty laundry. It's just a matter of how they're going to get it done. And at our very core customer, I think we would speak to that as being a low income to middle income renter household, whether that be an apartment or a rental home with kids. Ideally, the more kids, the more dirty clothes. And in a lot of the markets around the country, that's primarily a Hispanic family trade that does a great job of supporting our industry. Now, of course, we'll see people from all walks of life. Paul and I were just at our big conference last week, and one of the presenters was talking about having to speak something like 8 or 10 different languages based on the trade that they have coming into the store. And a lot of the more modern technology allows for that, especially at the machine basis, to be able to speak to that. But we're also seeing more and more people that are opting to use the laundromat that may have a machine in their apartment building, or even more so, Paul, for the last several years now, we know that we see homeowners coming in, right? We see the nicer vehicles, but the one thing they have in common is a big old pile of laundry, right? And they're just trying to get it done all at once. And then in terms of the sort of the ultimate convenience, we're certainly seeing those kind of folks either coming in to drop off their laundry or to take advantage of a delivery service. And Paul, I want to shout out Felix here as having the first question that came into the Q&A box. And we'd love to hear more from Paul about how to run a successful pickup and delivery service. What's his strategy if he was starting again? Well, we don't have 3 hours to dive into all of that, but maybe a 3 or 4 minute overview of what a successful pickup and delivery service looks like, and then we can sort of touch on some more of those themes as we go along, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing to remember, it really is a completely different business than the typical self-service or even wash, dry, fold, because you're adding that extra layer of uh, routes and developing, having drivers if you need it, although most of the POS systems now integrate with some of the on-demand services like Uber and DoorDash. And some people have used that to some success. It could be expensive. First of all, you need a space. If you're an existing laundromat owner, you got to make sure that you've got the space to store the stuff. You got to make sure, if as it grows, you're not stepping on your vended customers are coming in. There's nothing worse than a customer coming in with several loads of laundry and see the employees using all the machines and all the folding tables. So you got to plan on that. Um, you got to really look at you know, your employees. That's the biggest cost you'll have in wash, dry, fold, and pickup and delivery. Most wash, dry, fold you can do in a laundromat if you already have attendants and the extra labor is not much. But once you add pickup and delivery, you're going to need some dedicated personnel. Definitely have some robust systems, whether it's manual or automatic, to make sure you can track that stuff. People get very angry. And of course, when something gets lost, it's always Louis Vuitton. I just bought it last week.
Right.
So you want to be
No,
very,
no clothes from
very.
Walmart ever get lost.
Yeah. And the big thing is marketing, marketing, marketing. There's so many people doing it now. You really got to market yourself, and you got to set up some density if you're going to have your own drivers. It doesn't make sense. When I first started, we tried to do it in 2015, and I mean, my partner at the time was driving, half hour, 40 minutes away in Chicago to go pick up a 20-pound order at $1 a pound. And the numbers don't work out that way. So you got to build up some density or route to make it worthwhile for you.
Yeah, a couple of great themes there, right? So as straightforward and simple as self-service can be, wash, dry, fold, and especially delivery is complex. And I agree with Paul treating it as a co-located or a separate business. Marketing being of the utmost, controlling labor costs being incredibly important. And again, that big practical consideration you mentioned at the top, which is space. A lot of self-service laundromats are not necessarily designed with the excess storage space to handle wash, dry, fold, and delivery. And we can share with you lots of creative ideas that our members have come up with to handle that. But it's good stuff, and it's got to be well marketed and to keep things busy. Shannon had sort of a related question here over in the chat about just wash, dry, fold, pickup, and delivery without self-service. And Shannon, that's one of the trends that we've been seeing is just the multitude of approaches to providing what we would call full service laundry as opposed to self-service laundry. So yes, we have a number of members today that don't have a laundromat, right? They've created a laundry service where they're leaning obviously into the marketing and the technology side via an app or just a website. They're either partnering with another laundromat to be their processing partner or simply showing up and doing laundry. A lot of our members have seen conspicuous folks walking in with tons of laundry, and that's quite often a laundry service and opportunity to work together. We have people that have created what I would call a wash plant or production facility, big or small, where it's not a retail laundromat, but it's a separately created space that can handle the processing of laundry. So about as many different models as you can think of, we're seeing that happening right now to support this rapidly growing wash, dry, fold. And even in some of the news media, you're seeing some of these kind of at-home laundry stories where folks are washing laundry out of their homes, which I think we would have some qualms about, about quality and water temperature and wash chemistry and lots of other considerations. And I think we'd be looking to differentiate what a professional service like our members would be delivering. But just the same, there are a lot of those options out there.
Yeah, I'd say
Kristen,
probably one of the best. If a guy we know very well, started at one that's how he started. He started renting out space at a laundromat overnight and using the machines. And then he built this up into one of the biggest, it was in the Austin, Texas area, one of the biggest pickup delivery operations and the most organized and very efficient. Ended up buying a store, and it's pretty impressive. But that's the route he took.
yeah, yeah, no, and a lot of people have sort of backed into owning a laundromat through that. In other words, building up enough business of their own and then seeing the laundromat as, kind of the second investment instead of the first investment and to be able to handle that. So that's been super interesting. Kristen, I want to kind of cover your question because it kind of leads into my intro, which was, seems like there's a lot of people interested in laundromats these days, and seems like the competition is raising the prices being asked in terms of multiples and valuing the businesses. Is this something that you're seeing? Yes. Yes, yes, and yes. We'll have a slide for you a little bit later about valuation. And again, we just kind of came off this national conference last week, and the valuations were a topic of great conversation, and no one was talking about anything other than the valuations creeping higher. And so, on the one hand, if you're looking to get started, you could view that as bad news, I suppose, in terms of your timing. But on the other hand, it just shows that the industry is vibrant and growing, and there's a lot of interest, and it's driving up demand, particularly for some of the better stores. And I think that we're in a position through the association to help you sort of discern those better opportunities from the average or poor opportunities on that basis. So yeah, your eyes don't deceive you, Kristen. This is definitely something that we're seeing out there. And William, you asked a question on both about, does your benchmarking survey have real world revenue ranges per square foot? Yes. So we have a number of crosstabs, and we do break it down on revenue on a per square foot basis. And I've got a slide to show you on that a little bit later on. So, all right, I think that's a good kind of question break. You guys are doing great. I see a bunch more starting to fill in here, so keep it up. And like I said, we'll just kind of have this cadence of covering some content and jumping back into your questions and answers. And what I thought I'd do in this next section, despite all the disclaimers I gave earlier, we are going to talk about how great laundromats are and why there is this overwhelming interest in the business right now, what our members love about the business. But unlike a lot of what else is out there, I'm also going to do a slide about some of the challenges and obstacles and headwinds. What are the challenges that people are facing in the business right now? So, but I'll take the prerogative of getting off on the good foot, which is to say that laundries provide an essential service, right? And so people have dirty clothes, come rain or shine, they need to get them done. And there are, like I said, lots of options that people have when it comes to getting their laundry done. We happen to think that we've got a very compelling option based on speed, convenience, efficiency. So again, even those folks that may have a small home washer, when they need to catch up or have larger items, the comforters, et cetera, they know that there's more often than not now a professional, clean, well-lit, safe laundromat near them that they can use, even if it's on an occasional basis. And they may need that full service, that wash, dry, fold service. But it all begins with being essential, and the fact that that lends itself to very much of this sort of recurring revenue model where people are coming in. If they're Monday washers, they come in Monday. If they're Friday nights, they come in on Friday nights. Paul got to know a lot of customers on a first name basis, and they had their day and their time that they were there, and they repeated that behavior week in and week out. And in addition to sort of that regularity and the repetitive nature of the business that our members love and see a very steady income that comes from that, we've also experienced some major tests to this theory, most recently with the pandemic, but certainly in the recession of 2008 and 9, and certainly prior to that. And I don't quite say recession proof. I think that's too strong, and certainly not pandemic proof, but resistant, I think, is a fair term in that we held up better than just about anything else when you consider that. So, in the recession, did people tighten their belts a little bit? Sure. Did they go a little bit longer between washes? Did they maybe cram more laundry into smaller washers to watch their dollar? Sure. But we continue to operate very successfully as an industry. And in the pandemic, we even kind of brought that into our government affairs work, where we actually did some very successful lobbying to make sure that laundromats were among those central essential businesses that could remain open during the pandemic closures. So very steady, very reliable, very repetitive, and that also lends itself to this notion that it is simple, which again, I don't mean easy, but simple, meaning the tenets of being successful are very clear and evident. As you've gone around probably and visited some laundromats around you, there's plenty of folks that probably are not executing on those simple needs, and that's where some of the opportunity has come to the forefront. So, if you look at some of these keys to success, these are things that were true when Paul got in the business, when I got in the business years and years and years ago. There's certainly, maybe we could add technology to that list now. But in terms of having a great location, which to me includes the parking and the visibility, the physical space, but also the kind of the neighborhood location, cleanliness, after all these years, the cleaner stores outperform the stores that are dirty. Why someone wouldn't keep a store clean, we continue to scratch our heads, but we see it all the time. Same thing with equipment uptime. When Paul and I walk into a store in some city, one of the first things we probably notice is what percentage of the equipment is out of order. And if it's out of order, it sends the wrong message to the customers. Obviously, it's not producing revenue. And customer service. While self-service is quite often in our name, we know that the better stores, really step it up when it comes to customer service. Because again, we're asking these customers to come see us every week or every 10 days or every 2 weeks, whatever their laundry routine is, to spend 2 hours with us. And so we really need to make sure that we're convenient to them, that it's a clean, safe environment, the machines work when they need them, and that there's someone available there to give them a hand. So, Paul, does that still strike you as a pretty good list of things that are simple but maybe not easy to execute for everybody?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, some even nowadays, you still see too many owners who almost have kind of a disdain for their customers and don't think they really, you know, need all that. And that's not the case anymore. This is customers are looking for a higher experience. Even low income customers, they want a higher experience. They want to be treated right, and they want, good customer service. They want to be treated
Yeah.
properly. Place to go.
Well, and it's a big part of our passion behind the Laundry Cares project is that, we believe that all of our customers deserve that basic dignity and respect. And we know that they haven't always gotten that in years gone by through our business. And now it's really that more of that experiential aspect. That was a big theme of our conference last week, where I want to, everybody uses Starbucks as the analog, but yeah, I mean, kind of giving people that's more of an experience. It's more than a cup of coffee. It's more of an experience. And the better laundromats today are doing more than just a kind of a cold utilitarian environment. They're looking to warm up the place, give it a little bit more personality, and make it a little bit more desirable and comfortable for the customers. There's a lot of chat about this being passive or absentee. We tend to kind of reject that out of hand, at least the way it's most often interpreted, which is to say, well, you show up once a week and collect some quarters, and you see the TikTokers and other folks out there that might give that impression. Um, I don't see that as being passive or absentee in my experience, but what I do see a lot of, and I'll let Paul comment on this, is that it could be a very flexible business and have a lot of what I like to call kind of lifestyle benefits, some flexibility in your schedule. Just like anything else, you need to put the work in. You can create systems, get the right people on board, and you can find yourself spending, part-time operating the business. But more than anything else, there's some flexibility outside of an employee not showing up or a drain backing up on you. You can kind of pick and choose your hours. So I want to say at your maybe not at your peak, but most recent operation, you had 5 stores, and so I know I talk to some people that they're saying, oh, with those stores, maybe I only spend 20 hours a week. And others say I spend 80 hours a week. So when people ask you about how much time does it take to do a laundromat on a week in, week out basis, what's the answer that you give?
Well, you put into it, you get what you put into it. I mean, obviously, you need to take care of things, especially starting out. If you want to maintain your margin stuff, so you're fixing your own machines, you're making sure things are taken care of right. If it's a unattended store, you're making sure it's clean, as we said. But it does allow, yeah, flexibility. One of the greatest things that allowed me being in this business was I was able to schedule myself around every one of my kids' events. I was at went every baseball game, every soccer game, every, watching the silly trombone concerts in third grade. I was able to go to everything, which was great. It was really great. Um, it also allows you with today's technology to do a lot of stuff where you're not actually in the store. You can be doing it at home. You can do it with your phone. You can be sitting on a plane. You can be sitting on a beach. You can run a lot of that stuff. The physical being in the place really relates to cleanliness and maintaining it and maintaining the equipment. But other than that, and getting to know your customers. Again, most communities, you know, you want to make a community feel and get to know your customers, and that adds some value there as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's very well stated and something I've just heard repeated over and over again over the years, and certainly the bit about getting out of it what you put into it. Um, we have members. I just reviewed a video that we're posting here soon. Another member who's, you know, relatively new to the business, still has the quote unquote day job, full-time job, and so are they busy at night and on the weekends? Sure, but they're able to do both. And we've seen plenty of members that have added a second, a third, a fourth laundromat, maybe eventually give up the day job, yeah, and go into the laundry business full time. So, or not, so there's a lot of flexibility even in terms of that future direction. And, I think another thing to point out is that while there really are no national chains, and there are some franchises entering the chat. Any of you can build a world-class laundromat on your own. On your own, meaning with the help of CLA, with the help of a very highly qualified distributor in your area, your own horsepower and experience and sweat equity. It's really rewarding to see people that are brand new to the business building just absolutely top-notch stores, and you can do that too. So that's another appeal that people have where they can sort of realize that vision for that perfect laundromat. And anyone like Paul who's done multiple stores will tell you that no matter how good you do, that next store is going to have a little tweak, a little difference, a little something that you would learn from the last one that you apply to the next one in terms of making those adjustments. So that's a pretty good overview, I think, of the whys, why you should consider a laundromat, do some more homework. And before we do that, maybe I'll jump back to a couple of these questions. Do laundromats offer, we were saying sit down services, Wi-Fi, tables, coffee, baked goods? I would say a couple things, Paul. One, Wi-Fi has, I think, become pretty commonplace and maybe expected, and there's some ways to kind of keep that locked down a bit. You don't need your parking lot full of people using your Wi-Fi. But yeah, comfortable tables and seating, absolutely. When it gets into the coffee and baked goods in terms of serving food, that's another level up of complexity in most areas in terms of licensing, sanitation, other things that you're going to need to do. I would say the majority probably kind of draw the line at vending those types of things to keep it a bit simple. But um, what do you think, Paul, about kind of these additional quote unquote sit down services?
Yeah, you definitely see more of that from I've seen people set up counters with iPads that people can use. I've seen children areas that have gone even at a higher level than we've seen in some of our stores as far as electronics. And I actually saw one place that it was actually cool, one of those things that computer projectors that shine down on the floor, and the kids had created like little games like hopscotch and stuff for the kids to play. So you're seeing that. You do see some people who've tried various food counters and stuff. But again, another business, and like Brian said, a lot goes into that. So I've never messed with that. Coffee, yeah, I've actually over the years had gone back and forth with free coffee on certain days. Did free hot dogs on certain days, free pizzas. I mean, you can do that kind of stuff, but you don't see that by and large as a major thing. It just the margins aren't there, and it's just too much work and too much space. Really, the profitable space. You're better off leaving that open for your customers.
Yeah, and I never want to tamp down anyone's creativity, but I do hear this cafe concept over and over and over again. And again, some have been successful in doing something like that, but again, I think people usually kind of come to the conclusion that sticking with the basics is plenty profitable, and as you add on too much outside of the laundry lane, that you can get yourself a little bit tied up, and maybe you're spending a disproportionate amount of time and energy on something that might be a 5 or 10 or 12% of your business as opposed to the 80 or 90% that's getting it done for you. Ashley, is the laundromat business relatively resistant to the economy? Are there any user trends, seasonality, et cetera? Well, as I said a little bit earlier, historically, it has held up pretty well in terms of the economy, not unaffected. Like I said, I think you will see some things in terms of people, tightening their belts, doing a little less laundry, using smaller machines. One dynamic I saw in some markets during the last Great Recession was that, there were some the population trends, kind of a reverse migration. We had a lot of people moving out of, the Arizonas and the Texas market and Florida market. And if your neighborhood shifts and moves away, then you're probably going to see an impact on your business. But in terms of seasonality, that's a different question. I think in most parts of the country there is a seasonality in terms of seasons. So generally, we tend to see a little bit of a fall off in the summertime in a lot of markets. If kids aren't wearing clothes to school and after school clothes, that can be a little bit less activity. If you're here in the Midwest, like Paul and I, there's just less garments being worn in the summertime as opposed to being bundled up over the winter time. And as you're looking at existing stores, that's something you should be able to, really take a look at that. And even Paul, I see a lot of stores, especially in the inner city, that are even seasonal throughout the month, right? If public benefits are being shared on the 1st or the 15th or the 30th, you tend to see some fluctuation around when customers have money in their pocket. And lastly, there tends to be a weekly seasonality, if it will. So in your stores, Paul, I would imagine that a good chunk of that business was being done Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday were our busiest days. Sunday being the busiest, um, which is goes into when you're designing a store, getting a store. I mean, the idea is to have enough equipment, enough throughput, fast enough to keep people through on those weekends. You want to get them in and out as fast as possible, get as many turns, because on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you might at some stores you might not see very many people, and that could be a little depressing. So you want to make sure you get your people through on the weekend
Yep.
and as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and again, even just as a practical matter, when we're doing visits to stores, we tend to pick Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, just knowing that our members aren't going to be as busy, and there'll be a little less commotion at the store. But again, every market's a little bit different. So let's jump into the why nots and what are some of the challenges and headwinds. And I hosted a panel at our conference last week, and one of our questions that we explored was, what are some of the headwinds out there? And, a couple of things that came up that are just sort of more recently relevant would be, affordability and inflation considerations. So, certainly, we'll dive into this a bit more, but certainly the cost of building a laundromat, the cost of equipment. Someone mentioned earlier the cost of purchase a laundromat has gone up. But even some of the input costs, utilities, when utilities rise, that certainly has an impact on us on the cost of labor and having the right people on staff. Those are all things that can serve as headwinds. Another headwind related to costs we're seeing is laundromat insurance going up. We have our own insurance agency that's a resource to our members that we certainly highly recommend you look into. So there are always some challenges that are coming forward. A lot of it has related to some of the cost factors, but beyond that, in my consultations that I'm doing, every day with our new members, just the kind of the capacity and inventory is kind of one of the hurdles right now. Uh, Again, so many of you are interested in jumping in the business, so there's just a lot more buyers and sellers right now. And again, location dependent, but we are finding somewhat of a scarcity of inventory of stores to purchase. And it's always been tough to kind of find those perfect locations for building new. So I don't say any of that to discourage anybody, but just kind of framing it up and giving it the right context. And again, some of the social content out there makes it appear that you can just kind of go flip the switch. But I'm finding with most of our members and clients, it's really more of a process. And even if you find some opportunities, not everyone goes through. Just like any other business transaction, you've got different things that could stand in the way. So just being kind of the mindset that okay, this is going to be a little bit more challenging in terms of finding those availabilities is just commonplace right now. And so if you've been doing a lot of looking, you have a lot of company. A lot of folks have been doing that. And remember, it's not just first timers, right? A lot of our existing members, they would tell Paul and I, man, if I could find the right location, I'd do another store tomorrow. So they're very bullish on the industry, and the real, sort of governor of that is, can I find the right location? So you got a lot of folks that are bird dogging locations, and that's just something to bear in mind. Another theme that we like to touch on is, as Paul said, you can build these great relationships with your customers like anything else. 95% of customers are amazing. If any of you have worked retail, you know it's not always easy dealing with the public. And sometimes dealing with the public at the laundromat is not for everybody. Naturally, you get together at a conference last week, people are telling war stories. Would you believe this or would believe that? And again, I don't say this to be discouraging, but as a way to open the door to some reflection on your part is, are you ready for that? Is that part to be ready to have that be part of your day to day? And I think one of the great ways you can sort of explore this comfort level in terms of feeling safe, and this is something that you want to go to, is to go out and do laundry. During this discovery process that you're going through, put that 2 loads of towels in your trunk, and when you're driving around, just stop and do laundry as many places as you can. You're going to learn so much from that. It is a little bit of the sweat equity, putting some time in, but boy, you're going to learn a lot about what you like, what you don't like. You're going to learn if this is the environment that you're up to. And if it's in your local area, you're even going to start to build a little bit of a competitive analysis of what's around you and maybe even find some opportunities. Maybe you bump into the owner of a store and you can initiate a conversation. So highly recommend go out and do a lot of laundry, not just on this fit question of is this for you, but just really to better understand the business because you're going to be spending time in that environment. And one of my observations, Paul, is that sometimes when people uh, don't feel like this is a good fit, or they start to dread going to the laundromat and having some of those conversations, or running into folks that may be having challenges in their own lives, you start to see that store get neglected and maybe not tended to as well. And it's I kind of see it as a slippery slope that happens to some of these stores.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so the number one challenge, though, that I do run into is just pulling together the resources for that first store. Some of you probably have a very strong balance sheet. You have business experience. You can go right to the bank. You're going to be good to go. Most of who I see come across our desk here is like a lot of first-time entrepreneurs. They're going to have to kind of scrape together some things and really try to make it work here out of the gate and try to match that financial requirement. So I like to give you some kind of sense of what that looks like. So it's not just kind of a stray comment where I can, put a little context to it. So we'll talk some more about financing here in just a moment, but just to try to kind of give you a little bit of a scale here. Initial cash investment. Now, when you're looking to buy an existing store, that's a little bit more straightforward, right? Because it's got an asking price. Maybe you'll negotiate it somewhat, but the asking price is what it is. It's a public number. And you'll see stores for sale from a few $100,000 to, of course, a few $1 million, depending on the size and the profitability of those locations. But most of the acquisition financing that's available would put a sort of 30%, more likely a 40% requirement on your cash down in order to finance the rest of the deal. So as you're just trying to kind of back of the envelope figure out what you're going to need, if it's a $300,000 store, you're going to need $100,000. If it's $1 million store, you're going to need $300,000 or $400,000 in cash to get rolling. And again, that's before any improvements that might be made, whether it be aesthetic, remodeling, or let alone equipment. Those would all be in addition to that, but at least gives you some sense of what you're going to need. When it comes to a build out, and I don't have enough asterisks that I can put on here because there's so many variables, and Paul's laughing because he's been through it. But if we're going to talk about forget real estate, just building out a store in an existing retail space, whether it be a vanilla box or something that's being used for another purpose right now, I think if you start $350 to $450 a square foot, that's a pretty good starting point for construction, kind of the leasehold improvements that are going to be required, the equipment itself, the installation, and just kind of the overall construction. Are there stores being built for less? Absolutely. Are there still stores being built for more? Absolutely. But I just want to kind of give you a range that you can be working with. And so if you tie that back to that 3,000 or so square foot average that we shared a bit earlier, yeah, I mean, most new stores today are probably in that, million, million two, million four on up, even for that average size store. So, again, I just want folks to just have a better sense of what they're going to need because sometimes on social media, there's some conversations around, getting a store for a very reduced rate. And again, there are some of those special opportunities out there that you can find, but this is kind of the real deal. So, Paul, do you quibble with either of those numbers?
No, no. I mean, is the price of equipment has gone up quite a bit over the last 10 years or so, I'd say. And then, of course, building costs. I mean, as you can imagine, there's a lot of infrastructure that goes into a new build, plumbing, electrical, HVAC, all the ductwork, all that stuff. Yeah, that's a good number, but yeah, you're right on that.
Yeah. And again, I'm not saying any of this to discourage anybody, but we promise to tell you like it is. And we hope that you find the right opportunity or that you're prepared to go. And yeah, I just think that that's the straightest way we can share it with you. So just a little time check here. We got a little bit more than a half an hour to go. We've got some more prepared content to share with you. We are recording, and we will be sharing that with you. Um, Want to jump over to some of these questions. Somebody mentioned that even in a regular laundromat, labor costs eat up huge margins. Well, if it's a self-service laundry, you're probably talking about somewhere on the order of maybe 20% of gross sales going to pay the staff. As you get into the wash, dry, fold, and delivery, you try to price it accordingly, but you tend to see 22%, 24%, 25%, or even more, depending on what you're doing. So as an expense ratio, it's all about, it seems to me, about keeping it within a certain range, which is a function of the gross sales that you're doing, what your actual costs of labor are, and how that comes out, in the mix. Are there unattended laundromats? Yes. Can you offer those additional services in those facilities? No. Do they tend to maximize the potential? No. Do they tend to be the smaller stores that may be on our market that can't support an attendant? So there are partially attended, unattended, fully attended with production staff or laundry processing staff to support delivery. There's a lot of different models, and that obviously is reflected in the labor costs. Okay, Kristen, is there an optimal number of laundromats to have in a mature business? Um, I'll start this one, Paul. I mean, what I've seen a lot over the years, this hasn't changed a whole lot, is I see a lot of folks that have been doing it a while and are more or less owner operators with a little bit of management help, kind of being in that four, five, six store range. There's nothing special about that other than that tends to be kind of what maybe one person working really hard can handle and get their arms around. So I don't know about you. I see a lot of these four, five, six stores, and then if people go over that, then they tend to be adding more of sort of a management layer, store managers, general managers, et cetera, to try to support that. How would you answer that in terms of the optimal number of stores?
Again, you can scale it up as high as you want. It's just a matter of, like you said, managers. You're gonna have to find out man, and you have to find out what you want out of it too. I mean, my rate, my pay, labor rate was a little higher, but toward the last 10 years of being in the business, because I enjoyed the time off and stuff, so I paid a little more to have people manage and take care of it. It was just a lifestyle. But you can, like I said, you can scale as big as you want. I know guys who own, 20, 30, 40 stores and handle it. So, but it's just all a matter of having the infrastructure of personnel
Hmm.
to make sure you can take care
Hmm.
of it.
Hmm. Yeah,
Technology has made that a lot easier. It used to be the old
sure.
joke is I couldn't expand any more stores because I ran out of relatives to collect the quarters. Now,
Right.
new payment systems and cashless stores, it makes it a little bit easier to hand those responsibilities to somebody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, you can do as much or as little. I mean, that's really the answer. But again, it's just a different fit. A lot of the big theme of our conference last week for existing operators was around scale. And so, like Paul said, we had a lot of folks that were in the 10, 15 store range and maybe 20, 30, 40 store range. And again, they didn't keep their day job. This is their full endeavor. They are bringing on help in order to do that, and it works for them. And we've had people that have upscaled and downscaled, that have trimmed back stores over time as their career progresses. So there's just a lot of, I guess what they call today, optionality that comes with the business that we see a lot of. Yeah. So yeah, there's a question there about how often are you on site? That's like I said, I think those store visits have probably declined. The amount of time that people are spending is probably declined, but I would say it's with folks that have leveraged the technology. And again, maybe they're doing more of that work from home or on the road because they can dial in real time, not just with video, but with machine usage and their payment systems. So I think that the technology has definitely unlocked more of that multi-store management. Jumping over, okay, Paul, looks like you've responded a couple of these over in the chat. Um, the notion of cashless laundromats, that seems like something we haven't touched on yet. Um, I would say that the context that we see more often for that question would be coinless as opposed to cashless, meaning that um, there are stores today that operate purely on a card system or a mobile app type of system. But that would be sort of a smaller proportion to those that would be a hybrid, we would call hybrid, which are taking quarters and credit, debit, loyalty card, Apple Pay, pay with your phone, et cetera. But even those that are card operated only will take cash to add value to the cards in terms of banknotes. So there's a little bit of a difference there when you say cashless, if you mean purely cashless as opposed to just coinless. And those are parts of the trend now. So the majority of stores right now are on this hybrid system. The number of quarters as the only form of payment has dropped below 30%, which is a pretty radical change over the last few years, but an awful lot of folks that are doing the hybrid. Hope that answers some of those questions. Let's see here. Access to the benchmark survey is available through our membership, and I'll give you some more information on how to join and why to join. in the next couple of slides. Let's jump into some more of the content here before we get too far behind. And Kate, we anticipated your question about valuation. So again, big topic of conversation at any gathering of laundromat folks. This is a 2-hour topic. We'll do the 2-minute version and let you know that we've got videos, white papers, one-on-one consultations, lots of ways that we can help you understand this better. But laundromats sell in a multiple of the net, and it's typically expressed as an annual net. California does the monthly, but you can do the conversion. Everything's different in California. Yeah, it's as opposed to a 36 to 60 times monthly, a 3 to 5 times annual is what we see most often. Are there stores that sell for less? Yes. Are there stores that sell for more? Not many, but some have kind of crossed that bridge to a little bit higher valuations. As we said, they are going for more money these days, particularly for the better performers. Um, when I say net, I've come to understand from my accountant friends like Paul that we're really talking about sellers' discretionary earnings. There's a lot of different ways to slice what the net means. I call it like an operating net, right? So your top line sales minus the cost to operate the business, and excluding depreciation, any debt service that you're servicing or anything like that. So really just what's the store doing? And then adding the multiple that you would see in a small business like this. But I think it's more important to spend a moment on what drives that valuation. Like, how do you get there? Big difference between 3 and 4, or 2 and 3, or 4 and 5. So some of the big factors come into play are the lease and the condition of the equipment. So starting with the equipment first, as Paul said, the equipment's expensive. It's a big CapEx, and a lot of the stores for sale out there have middle-aged to old-age equipment, elderly equipment, and it needs to be retooled. And so that would have a major impact on what you're willing to pay for it, understanding what the capital reinvestment would look like. As opposed to looking at a store that has 5 or 6-year-old equipment and is on the front end of that, might even sell for a bit of a premium. Um, so that factor really needs to be taken into consideration. And what's old equipment, Paul? I mean, I tell people, 15 years is kind of a useful old age. Maybe people take it to 20, particularly on dryers. But it also has a factor of like mileage on a car. Has it been a real busy store and the equipment's trashed by 11 or 12 years? How well is it being cared for? Is it being meticulously maintained and you're going to get 22 years out of it? All those are possibilities, aren't they?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, the equipment will last. I mean, some of these machines you can make last as long as you want. I've seen some machines out there that are 50 years old that are still running. I wouldn't recommend it. The biggest driver of that is advancements in technology and the water and utility savings. You can see
Sure.
quite a bit of different, even machines from 15 years ago to now. You can see 20-30% savings on your utilities, which is obviously substantial. It's one of your biggest expenses. But again, maintaining them, I mean, if you maintain them in really great shape and you can keep them going as long as you want, I think a lot of people are shell shocked by the price of new equipment. But just in my experience, it's more than worth it. You see more than enough savings and just having the latest and greatest, more revenue, they almost pay for themselves.
And resetting the value of the business, right? And that's
Mhm.
relevant to this. And so when it comes time to sell and the equipment's 18 years old, you're just not going to get that full valuation that you're looking for, as opposed to 7 or 8 years. So and then Kate's asking, how should I inventory and value existing machines and infrastructure? I think that's kind of baked into this valuation formula, right? So you typically, despite it being an asset sale per se, it's really generally just viewed on this multiplier, and you're informing your multiplier based on the age and condition of the equipment, as we just discussed, but also the terms and conditions of the lease, right? So let's start with the premise that you can't pick up and move a laundromat, at least not as a practical matter. And so you've got this cash flow, okay, but it is in a sense protected by a lease for a finite number of years. And so again, a practical matter, when the lease is up, you're out of business. So the duration, we want the cost to be in line, but the duration of the current term and any executable extensions or options on the lease have a lot to say about the value of the business, because again, from the buyer's perspective, they want some assurance that will I be able to enjoy this net revenue cash flow going forward for 7 years, 8 years, 12 years, or 22 years, right? That'll have a lot to do with what that valuation comes in at. And of course, a educated buyer can make an offer that's contingent upon a negotiation for more time or extended lease with the landlord. But putting that part of it aside, the older the equipment, the shorter the lease, the less the business is worth. The newer the equipment, the longer the lease, the more the business is worth. And I think if we just keep that in mind, that'll serve real well. And again, in a lot of markets, a lot of the stores for sale have old equipment and short leases, so that's something that you have to play into your consideration. I would say the lease part of that is probably easier to fix, meaning, having that contingency in your offer to, get with the landlord and see if you can't negotiate more time and term. The equipment part of it is more challenging. And even if you don't think you're going to need new equipment, I would definitely try to get a quote on equipment for any store you're serious about, because as Paul said, there's some sticker shock. And I think the sooner you understand that, the better it informs your offer. And even if it's 8 years from now or 10 years from now, I think that is something that you're going to want to have top of mind to understand what that reinvestment is going to look like. So we have lots of resources on this question, again, with videos, best practice guides, consultations. But like anything else, valuation is a little bit more art than science, but the science part of it is just those basic, is this a good store or not? What's the lease look like, and what does the equipment look like? Okay, let's see what we got here. Let me click ahead a few more slides here, and then we'll jump back into your questions. Keep them coming. So I see a couple questions here about financing. Again, a 2-hour topic, but we'll kind of summarize here for you. Like I said, some of you are in a position you got your own resources. You're going to be able to handle this on your own, but most of who we work with here at the association are going to have to pursue financing options to try to help them along the way. So yes, people will use a conventional bank if they have a bank that has an appetite for small business lending, let alone an SBA expert on board. SBA can have some advantages like a lower down payment and perhaps better terms. The flip side of that is that it's a little bit more of an arduous process, and you need a banking partner that wants to help you get that loan. So it's certainly a live thing. The SBA tends to like laundromats. We've even had some members and past members serve as advisors and counselors with the SBA to help people understand the business. The overwhelming majority of the lending that we see is coming through what we'll call captive lenders that have a specialty for the laundromat industry. So there are quite a few companies that specialize in laundromat lending, both on equipment and to a lesser degree on acquisition lending. They are often owned and operated by one of the equipment manufacturers, right? So just like a car dealer might have an in-house financing arm, these folks have a financing opportunity in-house. And it's something that they use to sort of facilitate the purchase of their equipment and help people get into business, knowing that as a general rule, there's not a lot of small business lending out there in the wild, particularly for people that are first-time entrepreneurs, or certainly for this kind of niche business like laundromats. So there's been this really incredible ecosystem that's been created over the last 25 years or so, where you've got several companies that have done many billions of dollars in equipment lending. to the laundromat business. So there are some that are independent that just work closely with the manufacturers. There are some that are owned and operated by the manufacturers. And Andrew can put this in the chat, but we have a directory at our website, laundryassociation.org, that not only has all the washer manufacturers, dryer manufacturers, payment systems, et cetera, but you can find yourself a good list of the lenders that specialize in the business that you can use as a resource. So I'll just add that I joked a little bit about seller financing at the top. It's just kind of a white whale. You tend not to see a whole lot of it out there. Certainly not the main strategy that I would try to employ. Often seller financing, I see where it's a seller's forced to do it because there's something wrong, like they're not keeping good records, or there's something else that's disqualifying from conventional lending or even some of the captive funders to help make the transition. There are exceptions, of course, but I just don't want you considering that as a ready-made thing. But most of the first timers I work with, it's a combination of their savings, maybe a family or a friend, a partner to try to bring that total investment together to make it happen. I'm going to share a few profitability insights since I referenced our benchmarking survey a bit earlier, and I am keeping an eye on these questions, and I'll make sure that we have time to finish strong with a lot of your questions. But here's just kind of a tail of the tape that we'll share, because this is really one of the keys to the business is that, of course, there's more expenses than these three, but these are the primary expenses of operating this business. Utilities is your primary, what I would call variable cost, which is obviously the more laundry you do, the more water, sewer, gas, and electric you use. And so the efficiency or the percentage at which you use that can be very important. We see our newly equipped stores, as Paul referenced, new stores or newly re-equipped stores can be at 15% or even less. Conversely, some of the older stores and inventory, you might do your quick math on this at a store that you're looking at, you might find that it's at 32% or 28% or 35%. And that's just probably because it's just a function of it's an older store with older machines that use just a whole lot more utilities. Rent is a little bit harder to get your arms around in terms of geography, but the median being at 18%, I think the target is at 20% in most markets. We had a speaker last week, Paul, that had a bunch of stores he was showing us that were 9, 10, 12% rent to gross, which we were all very jealous in the audience. So obviously, whatever you can negotiate, the better. But those kind of what the tail of the tape would say in terms of what rent costs are. And again, we had a couple questions earlier about payroll. The statistical average is at 21.5% of gross, but again, you can certainly have that higher. If you're processing, if you're at Paul, like a lifestyle trade-off, hey, I'd rather have a manager in there so I get fewer calls. And then obviously people that are going unattended or partially attended can have some lower percentages. But these are expense ratios that we track every single year and publish in our survey. But I think that gives you some sense of what that might look like. In terms of further on the profitability front, here's a statistical average that ties back to that 3,000 square foot store. So that I can't remember whose question that was. Maybe it was William had a question about revenue per square foot. So that gives you some sense of what that ties back to. But again, there are stores that are grossing $1 million, $2 million, or stores that gross 50,000. It's all a function of the size and the market that they're in. Net profitability, though, I think is meaningful, averaging about 23%. But again, you can do the math from the prior page. You got to have those major expenses in line if you're going to try to achieve that level of profitability, or like a lot of our members outperform statistically and otherwise outperform this 23%. One question I get a lot, and I won't read this back to you, it'll be in the recording that we're going to share, but I just put together a chart here on buy versus build. It's a very common question that we get. There are pros and cons to both. Paul, I'm trying to remember, you probably have done both options, I'm guessing, over the time. You want to just speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I definitely we did we I've done all of the above there. Yeah, I mean I think this list is pretty good. I mean the one thing I don't see on there on the build would be takes time to ramp up. It could be
Mm,
anywhere
yeah.
from 3 months to a year to get to finally where your cash you have positive cash flow depending on your market. So you got to remember you need to have some operating capital to get through those times. Um, but other than that, yeah, this is a great list. Most people, I think, get into it by buying an existing store, especially as we've talked about the cost of a new store and the risks of that. But yeah, I would have nothing more to add other than that.
Okay. No, I feel good about that, having that covered. Yeah, we've alluded to the lease a couple of times, so I'll just hit it on the head one more time. You really need to make sure that the lease is in place. The business can be somewhat forgiving in terms of making mistakes. Everybody I've ever worked with has made mistakes in the business. Uh, One of the mistakes that's the most difficult to recover from is if you've got a lease problem. If you've got a lease problem, it's not easy to shake it, right? So the more you can do up front, and there was, I think Vic, you just made a comment in the Q&A about looking at a store and you discovered it in the course of the process, or maybe it was somebody else was asking, Kristen was saying about discovering in the course of the process that the lease was not transferable. Really can make it difficult. The landlord holds all the cards. And so I really think it's important as you're going through this process, especially if you've got a number of stores that you might be considering, really try to ask a lot of questions about the lease first, because if the lease doesn't get right, it's just all the rest of it is moot. So, like we said before, duration, cost, and Kristen, I call that the fine print. What do you mean it's not transferable? Or it may say something like, all right, current tenant, you may transfer this lease or sign this lease to a buyer who has equal or greater net worth compared to you, or has a net worth minimum of this, or there's just all kinds of things that the landlord can put out there to make sure they get paid. And so oftentimes that seller is going to be on the lease beyond the sale of the business. The landlord's going to keep them on that lease second in line in case something happens with you. So the landlord, it's good to be landlord. They have a lot of things that they can do to keep you to it. Some magic numbers there at the bottom. I say most of our members are looking for 20 or 25 years total, inclusive of options. In terms of an existing store to purchase, it's hard to make the argument at something being less than 10 years being workable. So again, you can make a contingent offers. You can try to get the landlord into the conversation as you're trying to buy the business, but it's really something you can't budge on when it comes to the lease considerations. Okay, so I think that's pretty much the prepared material. The next section is I'm going to share some additional resources that we made reference to and some other things that you can do to take next steps. But let me see if we can't clear some of the cache here of some of the questions that we maybe haven't touched on the topics. Let's see. Looking to get with someone to help with feasibility study to check our numbers, assumptions, potential locations. We're located in Vegas. Yeah, I mean, Paul does some independent consulting and he's a wealth of knowledge. Sometimes the local distributors can be in a position to offer you some of that consultation. Sometimes there's some local brokers, but we're certainly very happy to do consultations with our members in a broad sense or general sense. But yeah, those are the questions that you're looking to get answered, and we can help you with that along the way. I think Paul put his info in the chat. Let's see what else we have here. Jenny is a newbie. I signed the purchase agreement, now waiting to hear from the landlord. Everything is going through with the seller agent right now. What advice on this type of situation? Well, I mean, you're making progress, but I also would be thinking about your due diligence phase. That's something that I didn't get a chance to mention earlier is that you certainly want to take every step you can to corroborate the income, but one thing that I like to give as a little pro tip is that because this is valued on the net, it only makes sense that every dollar of expense is equally important. So, yes, will people fluff the numbers in terms of revenue? Sure. But I see more often than anything else, people underrepresenting their expenses, particularly when it comes to labor. So, when you're in that due diligence phase, it's good to look at the revenue and take the steps you need to take, but also make sure that you're in a position to affirm what the expenses look like. Any quick due diligence tips, Paul, from your experience, things to look for when you're trying to buy a store and corroborate the income and expense?
Definitely look at, utilities. You want to see utility bills because, as you saw in some earlier slides, there's some percentages. Not that it's an exact science, but you can at least kind of verify that the numbers are where they should be based on the utility percentages. Keep in mind things like, normally we discount or take out owner's salary, but in some cases the owner might be the attendant. So in that case, you have to take into account that, well, yeah, he's gone, but unless I'm going to be the attendant, I'm going to have to hire someone in the place. Um, Spot checks, doing collections with the person. I've even seen some people with the prevalence and inexpensive of camera systems now to allow, let me put a camera system in there that I can monitor your store for 2 weeks to make sure the owner's not, in case of a coin store, it's not unheard of for an owner to come in at night, fill all the money boxes up with coins, and then you come in to collect a couple hours later, and oh wow, this place was jamming last night. Might not be the case. So those are all things you want to watch out for.
Very good practical advice. And you're probably not going to get to a perfect place with that due diligence, but you want to get it narrowed in to what it's doing. And again, we've got best practice guides, videos, consultations that we do on that topic all the time. Equipment repair really hasn't come up very much in our conversation. And so Deborah asked the question, when equipment breaks down in your laundromat, how do you typically manage repairs? Do you rely on the equipment distributor, independent repair contractors, or a mix of both? How did you learn to repair machines yourself? So that's kind of an all the above answer there, Paul, when it comes to how to handle repairs. How would you summarize that?
Yeah, I mean, usually, especially in a new location or new equipment, a lot of distributors will, in addition to the manufacturer's equipment warranty, will provide a short-term service warranty for a few months. There are independent people out there that do that. They're few and far to find the right ones as price. But I would say probably 90% of the repairs on laundry equipment is something that's fairly simple to do. If you are all mechanical or know how to use a screwdriver, you can probably fix these. Most manufacturers have service helplines, so you can call up and get help. Obviously, there's a lot of YouTube videos out there and so forth. There's even a couple companies I've seen working on virtual service where you can do a service and be attached, hooked up with a serviceman somewhere else remotely, and they can walk you through it based on, photos from your camera and, stuff like that. But to learn it's really not that hard, just a matter of getting in there and doing it. Like you said, 90% of it is fairly easy. A lot of it's part swapping, a lot of it's cleaning drains, those type of things, and you can find that information online just about anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, and again, we've seen some pretty cool things coming down the pike in terms of AI in equipment repair. And so, but the practical matter, Deborah, is that a lot of people, even those that are like me and don't know which way to turn the screwdriver, they figure it out. Uh, in part due to cost, but even more so than that, it's just the uptime, because again, to have someone come out, you're waiting on it. So just those top 5 or 10 basic repairs, people learn how to do them just as a matter of just keeping things rolling and keeping at it. And like I said, there are service schools that sometimes the local distributors will put on, but YouTube has become a big resource for just about everything, including that. Kate is asking, will equipment vendors finance the purchase of new equipment? Yes. If how many years? I think they're going out to 10 years now, aren't they, Paul? On
I've
some
seen
of these
some
things.
tenure, yeah.
Yeah. So, it used to be only kind of a 5 year thing, but then it kind of pushed out to 7 or 8, and maybe to kind of keep pace with the SBA that goes out a bit longer. We've seen the industry do some of that. So, We're gonna take some more questions, but I'm also gonna try to get some of these resources into your hands here in the next few minutes, and then we'll see how many we can get to on the closeout. Um, we have been talking about social media along the way, and we love the fact that all of a sudden the laundromat industry is a social media darling and everybody wants to get more. But it's worth mentioning that we've created our own channel that's about not quite a year old, where we do deep dives with our members that have had a lot of success. And here's a couple faces we saw at our conference last week that are here on video. So at the CLA Spotlight, definitely follow us on YouTube. Andrew just put the link in the chat. We have just had a great time. Actually, I'm going to be out in Dallas next week shooting some more stores for upcoming episodes. So if you really want to see the real deal, check out the videos at the CLA Spotlight. It'd be a great source of education for you. I mentioned earlier that we have a number of business solutions, and insurance is a big one, particularly if you are buying an existing store, but even if you're building new, don't let the insurance go to the last minute. Please use someone who knows laundromat insurance. It is not easy to get. We do have what's considered an at-risk business, particularly when it comes to two things really: a slip and fall traffic that has been mitigated a lot by the camera systems, but it's there nonetheless. But also, we do run into dryer fires and just things happen. So make sure that you're out in front. But we've been doing laundromat insurance exclusively since 1988, so we know what we're doing. We also heard a presentation this week from Forward Energy Solutions. If you're in a market that has deregulated gas or electricity, or preferably both, we have a resource that can help you negotiate contracts for less expensive utilities, especially these days. That becomes super important. We also have a very solid digital marketing support with AMP. Gusto, you might know them from various HR services, payroll. We've got a program with them. One of our most popular of late is our partnership with Laundry University. So this is a way to learn the business from an operational standpoint. And for those of you being newbies, this is really probably more intended for your attendance, but I would consider going to school. Get to know the ins and the outs, what it's going to take, because you're going to have to be training people on this. And Laundry University is a great resource. And of course, we have a discounted option for our members. So Laundry University is a great resource. All of this is on our website, by the way, laundryassociation.org. And Andrew's been peppering these in the chat. So if we look right now, he's got a bunch more over there for you. I see a lot of incredible women in the chat here looking to be entrepreneurs in the laundry business. We had an incredible women's conference last week in Hilton Head. There is a big time cohort of women in our business that are mentoring each other, helping each other along. And we would highly recommend you become part of the Women's Laundry Network. There's monthly programming and check-ins and, as I said, mentorship opportunities available. So please avail yourself of our Women's Laundry Network. We also have local meetups a couple times a month someplace. With June coming up, we're going to be out in Northern California on the 4th. We'll be here in Chicago on June 11th. These are great opportunities, especially for newbies, to start to meet the people, meet the distributors, meet the brokers, meet the fellow store owners. I can't tell you how generous our guys are, and sharing information, giving a phone number. Hey, call me if I can help you. That's why we have this association. We have this network of people that are working together. So go to the website. You'll see a calendar of all of our upcoming events, and I'd highly recommend you coming to a local event near you, even if you have to jump on a plane. I also want to call out our media brand. So we are CLA, the Laundry Association, but we have our own publication, both in print and digital, called Full Cycle. Incredible resource. Again, more stories from all of our people. It's just really indispensable resource. And we also have the e-newsletters and other podcasts under the Full Cycle banner. So check out your favorite podcast platform. Look for things from Full Cycle Magazine. We used to be known as Planet Laundry, but now known as Full Cycle Magazine. And Andrew just put it in the chat. Make sure you're a subscriber. Um, we just mentioned coming off a hot conference just last week, but there's always a new conference coming. The next one is our now famous Wash Dry Fold Conference, WDF, Wash Dry Fold. This has been such an incredible trend from some of the innovators like Paul and many of his peers. We now have a separate conference put aside for Wash Dry Fold. So mark your calendars, come there. It's a game changer to come and learn in person. We also, speaking of learning in person, we have our basically our in-person version of this, where we take basically an hour of each of these key topics, and we bring in speakers like Paul and some of his friends and colleagues to serve as our faculty. And so this would be a great resource for you. Last and certainly not least is become a member. If you're going to be serious about getting into the industry, please spend a couple $100s. The current membership is $5.99. So before you spend a few $100,000, spend a few $100 to really put your hands on the best resources. And one of those is me. One of the first things that comes through as a member is a link to my personal calendar for consultations. And I've got lots of friends like Paul and are just a great network that I can tap into for best resources, making referrals. So, please use this promo code and knock $100 off that first year membership. So again, for $4.99, you're really going to give yourself a huge leap forward in trying to tackle this business and do it with the best possible information. So consume it all the videos, all the podcasts, everything you can find, but also know that you've got a touchstone here, a professional association that can help you navigate the rest. So looking down, we've run out of time, but a couple thank yous that I want to make. Paul, thank you so much for your time and generosity, as always. He shared his contact in the chat there if you need some additional time with Paul. Greatly appreciate all of you being with us. You're a step ahead by having spent this time with us, and we look forward to being part of your laundromat journey going forward. You will receive a copy of the video, and we can't wait to see you next time, and we'll see you down the road. Thanks for joining us. Thanks,
Thanks, everyone.
Paul.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Audio Jungle.